And we are live. Put it in the books, baby. How's it going, all you amazing Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of? It's your guy, Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest New York Metropolitan postgame segment as they take down the Chicago White Sox by a final score of 5-1. So in tonight's postgame show, presented by BetUS, America's #1 sportsbook, make sure to check them out today by clicking that link down below the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 for all your sports betting needs. And I really hope you guys hammer the Mets money line and the series as a whole as the Mets are taking on the 30-100 or so Chicago White Sox. There is absolutely zero reason to lose this series. There is zero reason to even drop one game, even though the Mets may do it. But in tonight, we're going to break down a comfortable victory for the Amazons as they went out there and secured this one by a final score of 5-1. Headlined by Tyler McGill making his long-awaited return to the Mets rotation. How would Tyler perform in this one? That is what we're going to break down to a T. All in all, I was pretty satisfied with Tyler's outing here in what is going to be one or multiple starts before Paul Blackburn is inevitably slotted back in this Mets rotation. We're going to get into the heroics from Tyrone Taylor, quite literally being Spider-Man, a true web gem, if you will. There that we saw Jeff McNeil do the same exact thing all those years ago in 2019 in Southside against those White Sox. The Mets got the hitting, they had the pitching, they had the balance, and the only thing that I truly had as a question mark in this game at any point where I was like not loving Mendoza's decision making was honestly and truthfully what we saw there with Edwin Diaz in the 9th inning. Why are we pitching Edwin Diaz for a 3rd consecutive day? I understand he needs more work. I understand he'd even pitch 10 times in the month of August, but I also understand that it makes sense as to why Edwin Diaz maybe shouldn't have been used tonight, maybe tomorrow if it's a tighter ball game somehow, because you never know what's going to happen. My only gripe tonight is that with Edwin Diaz likely not available tomorrow, that may, with the Mets' luck, come back to bite them in the butt. We'll see what happens. I hope I'm proven wrong, but that was one decision that even though Edwin cruised in the 9th without a problem, didn't work hard counts at all, doesn't change the fact that he's likely not available now. You're not going to pitch him a 4th straight day, and if the Mets for whatever reason have a sweaty matchup tomorrow, it's going to be many to blame here as we look back from this victory 5-1. That is the only nitpick that I have about this out of anything at all. Definitely want to know how you Mets fans feel about it, and everyone first chiming in live on a replay. Thank you all so much for being in here. I greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this live on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe on. Help us get to 27,000 subs for your next short-term goal. Greatly appreciate it. If you're watching this on Twitter X, on my personal Twitter account there, make sure that like, that follow button, that retweet button. But no, as always, I'm only going to be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube as we break down the ball game inning by inning, as we always do in our typical post-game coverage. The #1 Mets post-game show, not directly affiliated with the Mets themselves, thanks to all you amazing Mets fans. And you guys can now listen to your guy Wardy wherever you get your audio podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple, Google, you name it. Leave a 5-star review if you find yourself enjoying as I drop a audio form of our post-game segment not long after every single post-game show for the most part this season. Check them out. Leave a review. Thank you so much. And a couple of remarks that I would like to share with each and every one of you are the following. First, thank you guys all so much for the well wishes. Yes, today is in fact your guy Wardy's birthday. I am a young 24 today, and as I say I'm young, I'm already feeling the effects of, early fatherhood, if you will. As you guys know, I am the father to my amazing young son, Shay, who's just a couple months old right now, and it was my first time having a birthday with him, and it was the best one yet. I'm so grateful for him, my girlfriend, my entire family, and for all you guys, my extended family here in this Mets community that we have built over the past number of years. So I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you so much for the kind words that we saw transpire as I posted earlier on the community tab and on Twitter X. Seriously, thank each and every one of you. If it isn't for you guys, I don't get to do what I love for a living, quite literally. I've been living the dream as a diehard Mets fan, getting to cover the team. It doesn't get much better than that, and I truly cannot thank each and every one of you enough who have been supporting me either since day one back in December of 2020 when we dropped our video on the Mets' first signing under Steve Cohen, that being Trevor May, or fast forward and maybe you just found the channel today or last night. Either way, I greatly appreciate you all. Benjamin with the other tweet, aha, again, mind you, Ben is a Braves fan, so just to show you how insane the community here is on the channel. Ben is a great example of exactly that. I love him to death for it. Mets beat last place team. Love your show, Wardy. They did beat the last place team, as they should. Ben, I love you, my man. Thank you so much for the donation, the continued generosity. Thank you to everyone first chiming in the live show. I greatly appreciate you guys, all my members. And Rebecca, great moderator, guardian of chaos, Daniel Caps, Mike, Kish, going down the list. Camp, I sincerely apologize, Camp, also for missing a comment of yours yesterday. Hopefully we'll make sure that doesn't happen again. We got everyone chiming in live on a replay. As always, Harold Atkins, Mike, great members going up the list here. Thank you guys all so much for taking the time tonight. Kish, how you doing? Alan, Emerson, you guys are the best. James, how are you? And a couple other notes I would like to make of note here, folks, is some very tragic news today. Now, there's two things I'm going to share with you all. I'm going to be brief with them because I understand that this isn't what you guys are coming to the show for, but something that needs to be acknowledged. And even though that today is a great day, knowing that's my birthday, so it's always a special day for me and my family, it doesn't mean that was a special day for everyone else. Quite literally, it's the opposite of a special day for some people. And my thoughts and prayers are, one, with Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau at this time with his family throughout what is something that I can only imagine. I pray I never have to endure such a thing, what they dealt with today. For those that don't know, Johnny Gaudreau, star player leading the way there for the Columbus Blue Jackets, a guy who I had the privilege of even covering back when I did strictly hockey coverage for all my Wardy NHL followers. If you know, you know. Johnny, New Jersey native, East Coast hockey player that we all grew up idolizing for my fellow hockey fans out there in the same age group. Johnny and his brother sadly passed away over this past night, a day before his sister was going to have her wedding because of a drunk driver. Yes, you heard that correctly. I'm sure you all saw the news by now, but Johnny's a player that I looked up to greatly, especially an undersized player in hockey is not an easy thing to do. Matt Zuccarello is one of my favorites growing up as a Rangers fan. If you know, you know. Johnny's a guy I've always admired, even if he would have ended up with the Devils or the Flyers, more homegrown teams. He instead went to Columbus and wanted to lead the charge in a smaller market, which I greatly commend him for. And sadly, he is no longer with us. I'm thinking about him, his wife, his kids who he left behind, and everyone else involved, himself and his brother. And then to add as well to this, which I do not want to share, I'm not happy to share this, but we do have some terrible news as well. And this is where I ask for the power of prayer from each and every one of you, regardless of who you're praying for. Crisis came, as we know. But what we also know is that Elliot, Mets Nation, who has been a longtime member and a longtime follower here on the channel. It feels like yesterday Elliot was here on the channel doing a private call with myself and not even 10 Mets fans the night before, around midnight almost, before we saw Francisco Lindor sign his extension with the Mets right before opening day 2021. Elliot and I built an awesome relationship over the years. He was on the channel numerous times as a live caller, always witty, always charismatic, and always just a big smile on his face, and always the most kind and gentle human being that you could find yourself approaching or talking to. I cannot say enough amazing things about Elliot, and sadly right now he's not doing so well health-wise. The latest I have heard is that he's still with us, but I'm not sure exactly how much longer that might be the case. So all I ask from each and every one of you is your thoughts and prayers, a moment of silence here, not only what we saw transpire today with the Gaudreau family, but also with our great friend Elliot in the channel, who I know many of you know very well. Actually heartbreaks me knowing that this may very well end up being the second person. And that call I had with those live members back in 2021, I lost one years ago. His name was Joe. If you guys remember Joe, he gifted me a awesome Mookie Wilson, Bill Buckner dual sign jersey. And within a year of following the channel, suddenly passed away out of nowhere with like spinal cancer in like his 30s or early 40s out of nowhere. I don't know the case here with Elliot right now, but I'm just thinking of him greatly and these very difficult times for him and his family. So thoughts and prayers with you all. Love you guys. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. That'll be the last that we speak of that for now. But Elliot, we love you to death, my friend. We are all praying for you. And no matter what ends up happening here, you're always going to be in our thoughts and prayers. Certainly mine. Certainly mine. Camp, Fletch, great members. Thank you guys for the kind words. I appreciate that. Zach Flankerton, thank you so much for the $5 holla. Zach in the chat says, for the first time this season, the Mets get to face a team that issues more walks than them, can contribute to erase the Mets' loss record. Happy B-Day. Thank you so much, Zach. I appreciate that. And yes, you love to see it. The Mets didn't find themselves getting absolutely worked with walks, which have decimated them so many times this season. Madeline, how are you? Thank you so much for the kind words as well. Everyone chiming in live on a replay. I was about to break down the latest in Mets land, everybody, as they take down the Chicago White Sox with ease tonight by a final score that we see here of 5-1. In tonight's show, we're going to break down everything to a T, inning by inning here shortly. We're also going to do a little bit of a deep dive on what stood out so much about Tyler McGill's 5.1 one earned run outing and his return to the Mets rotation. And my simple question, everyone watching live here on YouTube, is the following. And for my replay viewers, drop them down below. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Tyler McGill's outing in return to this Mets rotation? Ottavino, Reed Garrett, Maton, and Diaz all came in with scoreless innings. The Mets pretty much retired. It felt like the final 20 batters that they faced or close to. It was definitely a trend of that direction. So great stuff from the pitching against a lesser White Sox club, doing what needs to be done, simply put. On the hitting end as well, everybody, we're going to get into the key takeaways for this. Absolutely. JDM, what we saw there, Marky V with a late big hit up the middle, and what we also saw with Jesse Winker, which is, in my opinion, the biggest standout today. The only reason why you don't see Jesse on the graphic right now is because he was pulled later in the game for a defensive replacement. I'm going to showcase his numbers as he had a massive 3-hit game, including a nice RBI double. Shout out to Jesse Winker, continues to hit now for right around 300 since the Mets have acquired him. Pretty solid. And as we transition into the wildcard standings, the Mets are still 3 games out. The Atlanta Braves took care of business against the Philadelphia Phillies today, sadly. So the Mets are going to continue to chip away, but good news for them. They still have the Chicago Cubs 2 games behind them right now. The San Francisco Giants 7 and the St. Louis Cardinals 7. The Cardinals are the big concern as they're just a couple... my apologies. 2 games behind the Mets. Then it's 4 for the Giants and 4 for St. Louis. I got confused with the games back there, wild card versus just behind the Mets. White Sox are nipping on the heels of the Mets, which is why this series to not only win it, but to try to secure a series sweep is all that much more vital right now with the way these teams are absolutely rolling. But before we break down more on the ball game, before I get into some more donations that we're going to address here in just a second, that I'm beyond humbled and grateful for, let's let it rip with the official, the one, the only, especially for my man Elliot, because I know he would want this right now, the official WardyNYM post-game jingle.
Postgame. Postgame. Calling all Met fans, come and join us now. Talking about this game and gonna break it down. It's Mets Postgame.
Shout out to my guys Greg and Jordan with the official WardyNYM post-game jingle. If you guys know, you know. No matter how much you love or hate it, it ain't going anywhere. It's going to continue to roll, and I hope that you guys are having the post-game jingle running in those ears non-stop, 25/8, not even 24/7, because that means the Mets don't stop winning, baby. That is what I want to see. We need a series sweep. I'm snapping out of it, okay? I'm definitely upset about the news I just shared with you today, but I cannot also hold back my animosity when looking at this Mets team and how vital it is that they make sure that they take care of business here. Great game 1 win, a comfortable game 1 win, probably one of the most comfortable wins that we've seen in a minute, but we need to see more of this, and we need a series sweep, especially with how these teams are performing. Anything short of a series sweep is just going to further add to exactly why the Mets are very well going to still find themselves on the outside looking in with postseason play. Thank you, guys. Love it, love it, love it. All right, guys, let me get to some donations here. Then we're going to rapid fire break down the ball game as we always do. Benjamin, thank you so much with the what? Oh, my goodness gracious. Benjamin from the top rope, a $100 holla from the best Braves fan you quite literally will ever meet, everybody. It is absolutely insane. My goodness, my God, my gracious. Benjamin, thank you so much for the $100. I greatly appreciate that. He says, thanks for being a great man. Sure, your son will follow. Respect you. Ben, I respect you as well, and I sincerely appreciate you. You have no idea how much those donations go a long way as support back here on the channel. 1, which it helps keep things afloat with everything we do as consistently as we do, but 2, also how much it helps going right back to me and my family. So seriously, thank you so much, Benjamin. I love you, my friend, and I cannot begin to tell you how much that truly means to me. Explosive, yet yes, that is true. Previne, I'm so sorry to hear about your friend Bobby. Truly terrible. My God. Hit a pole, killed instantly. Yes, this is why you don't drink and drive. It's as simple as that. And yet it's still one of the biggest problems that we have in this country when looking at driving on a day-to-day basis. Unfucking believable. AZ with the $20 haul. Thank you so much. My apologies for the profanity there, everybody. Thank God I was going to throw some furniture if the Mets drop this game. Hope you're having a happy and blessed speed day. You were awesome, AZ. No, you were awesome, my friend. Longtime follower. Great supporter here as well. Thank you so much here, as always, my man. Let's see here. Put in the W. Put in the books, baby. Another big W. Rip Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. Prayers for Elliott. Thank you so much for all that, AZ. Can we get some love and hype in the chat, not only for Ben, but for AZ as well? You guys have been beyond generous, and I greatly appreciate every single one of you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Daniel, I'm so sorry to hear that as well. I don't even know what else to say other than I am sorry, and I'm thinking about you greatly right now, hearing this word. So crazy enough, talking about the Johnny Gaudreau situation brought multiple Mets fans in this community together here, speaking on, sadly, their own past issues that they've had with family passings because of, sadly, the same exact issue. I'm certainly thinking of you, Daniel. I don't know how short or long ago that was, but I'm sure that's still just as fresh. So know that I'm thinking about you, and I love you, and I cannot begin to tell you how much I appreciate your endless support here, especially with the endless memberships that you throw our way. You're in here every single show for the most part. Seriously, Daniel, I'm thinking about you, but more than anything, I appreciate you. Thank you all so much. All right, guys, let's get into breaking down this ball game. I don't want to waste any more time. Donald, thank you so much for the $4 donation. Donald, you're a beauty. Appreciate that. And again, not that there's anything wrong with why we took so long to get to the point of breaking down the ball game, but now let's actually break down the ball game, shall we? We're halfway to 100 likes. If you guys could smash a like and subscribe on, really appreciate that too. But we saw Tyler McGill come out here on the bump against the Chicago White Sox, and Tyler needed to make a statement because even though McGill is not a guy that's likely to stay with this Mets roster for the remainder of the season once Blackburn returns, we all know that Blackburn isn't the best pitcher in the world, and that number 5 spot for the Mets, especially should injuries occur, can easily change by the day. And for Tyler McGill, what he needed to do coming out in the start was have control, have command. That was a big thing because walks have hurt him so much. He's definitely struggled to command that breaking ball that we have seen, and to make sure that that fastball is utilized in a way that he's having success with the higher velocity, but he also isn't using that purposely for the emphasis behind the success there, in the sense of making sure that you're not just throwing for the sake of throwing, making sure that you're really manipulating and having strong pitch grips. And not only the pitch grips, but rather the shape of his fastball is something that I honestly don't think is bad. It just performs a lot better what we have seen with his overall production, McGill, when he has pitched in the higher velos versus the slower velos. The lower 90s versus higher 90s have been a big difference for Tyler McGill. His soft tossing right-handers simply don't get it done all that often, the bigs, unless you have pinpoint accuracy where you're off speed and breaking pitches. In the case of Tyler McGill, he doesn't have all that, which is why he had a rocky start to this ball game, but how he ended this ball game was really strong, and that is something to make note of, in my opinion. Thank you guys for those donations, but let's get into this one now, folks. As we see here, Tyler McGill and the Mets would get off to an early start thanks to Mr. Mark Vientos with a 2-out single. We would see him rip one opposite field. Marky V getting on with a big hit that we saw in the first inning and then the last. The Mets would not get any more hits after that, and funny enough, I think Mark Vientos actually had the Mets' first and last hit of the game, too, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to double check to make sure that's correct, but I do believe that's the case here. But Vientos gets a single. That's all she wrote, though. We see in the bottom of the first, the White Sox somehow, some way get up early. And the White Sox get up early because Nicky Lopez gets on with a leadoff walk. Tyler McGill right away struggling with the command. But funny enough, the worst at bat that Tyler McGill had today basically was right there, was against Nicky Lopez. Lets Lopez get on there with a leadoff walk. And Andrew Benintendi, already one of the worst contracts, if not the worst contract in all Major League Baseball, actively of players that are currently playing. Andrew Benintendi on that long-term deal with the White Sox because their incompetence in front office and ownership over the years has been simply, unprecedented, unless you were named the Wilpons or Artie Moreno there with the Halos. We see Andrew Benintendi somehow rip a double, his 18th of the season, and that gives the White Sox an early 1-0 lead in this ball game. And when I saw that happen, I was like, all right, great. So Tyler simply doesn't have his stuff early in this one. Normally, I wouldn't be overly concerned, but given that every game is so vital for this Mets team, I'm not loving what I'm seeing here. The good news, Tyler McGill, after the second inning, would settle down a lot, and this would be the lone run that he would find himself giving up tonight. Because afterwards, we would see the Mets not take too long to find themselves in the run column themselves. And it begins, though, here on the offensive end with Mr. Jesse Winker. Great day for Jesse, who was in the starting lineup for the Mets in this one. He started there batting 5th in right field. JD Martinez was in the 6th spot, which he thrived in yet again. Then we saw McNeil, Alvarez, Bader as your 7, 8, 9. From the Mets offensively, JDM, speaking of the devil, he comes in with 1 on, no out here. Jesse Winker gets on with a single. JDM gets on with a single. Back-to-back hits to begin the inning here for the Mets. And then let's add insult to injury here for Chicago as Jeff McNeil gets on via a walk. Surely the Mets are going to pounce. Surely they are really going to take advantage of this bases loaded, no out opportunity. Sadly, the Mets do get runs, but not the way that they're supposed to here, because the Mets get a strikeout from Francisco Alvarez swinging the first out of the inning. Okay, it's not a double play ball. It's not the end of the world. This is where things become a problem. The Mets end up getting the challenge won after we would see Harrison Bader run down the line. He would ground into a force out, just avoids the double play, thankfully. That ties the ball game for the Mets, but that was just that close to being an inning-ending double play for Chicago, who had that inning where your pitcher was unbelievably rattled to start there, and Cannon, bases loaded, no outs, and he gets out of that jam the best way possible if you're not giving up more than a run. And that was the case here for Mr. Bannon, as he then gets a ground out from Lindor to end the inning. So the Mets, who had a chance to really pounce early, bases loaded, no out, do all but that. They have a tied ball game, but thankfully, even after that situation, I initially had on Twitter ready to post, but I deleted it after the fact, that the Mets strand, bases loaded, there, no outs, not feeling great early in this one. I held back though, because I said to myself, this is the Chicago White Sox. Let's give this more time. I'm gonna let this marinate a little bit before I make my executive decision as to what I feel this ball game is going to end up being, either a win or a loss, or how dramatic it might be. And at that point, I was saying, you know what? This is a White Sox. I know every game's important here, but I feel because it's important, the Mets are going to come out and perform in this one. And thankfully, they were able to do exactly that, because as we continue to break down this ball game, everybody, we would see the Mets have it tied 1-1. So then we get to the bottom of the second. And in the bottom of the second, Tyler McGill works some Houdini magic here, guys. We would see Dominic Fletcher get on with a hit by pitch to kick off the inning. That's after a Corey Lee single. So there's 2 on, no out here right away. In the second, Tyler McGill already in a jam just like he was in the first. What happens afterwards would be impressive. We would see a McGill Vargas strikeout. The guy simply has not been able to hit at the MLB level at all. That's why the Dodgers traded him in the Garrett Crochet trade earlier this year that we saw. Nicky Lopez that we saw, and not just Garrett Crochet. Who was the other big? Eric Fetty went to the St. Louis Cardinals in that 3-team deal. That's why. Nicky Lopez gets on with a single after the second out, which was from Amaya, but thankfully, Luis Robert lines out there on a first pitch swinger or so, and that does it for the inning. So bases loaded, 2 out for Luis Robert, the most vital hitter, and the one where he's incentivized and doesn't have banged up hips, is one of the best players in Major League Baseball. Was not that one tonight, and the Mets were able to take advantage of a White Sox team that simply does not want to be here and wants the season to end. The Mets get out of that bases loaded jam unscathed for Pete Alonso to get on with a 2-out walk. And that would be big, because Jesse Winker continues his great hitting day. He rips his 23rd double of the season, this time going in the gap, Oppo, and that would get, or maybe he pulled this one actually. I think he, let me see. I think he pulled that one a little bit. I could have been wrong. Jesse, what did you do here on this move, Jesse? I'm actually going to double check real quick to make sure that I have this one accurate. Did he pull this, or did he go Oppo for Mr. Jesse Winker? Jesse ended up going Oppo. Yep. Wait, did he go? How did that come off the bat? That looks so weird. No, he did pull that. My bad. It wasn't Oppo. He pulled it. Yep. Pulled that one. Jesse Winker, 23rd double of the year. That gives the Mets a 2-1 lead, and they would thankfully never look back from there. When I say never look back, it would be as quick as the next batter that we would see faced for JDM and Bannon, because JDM gets all that one. He rips one to left that for whatever reason Gary Cohen on the broadcast just did not see it happening at all. And that one is out of here eventually as JDM rips a 2-run shot. The Mets are now up 4-1 in the ball game. JD Martinez with his 16th home run of the year. You know what I will say is kind of funny? JD preseason said that, he didn't sign with the Giants because they don't have the most hitter-friendly ballpark, and he knew that at the end of the season, around a 20 home run, 70 RBI clip or so, that he could have himself kind of getting ragged a little bit. And the funny thing is that JDM isn't completely in line to do exactly that, and that's exactly what I envisioned him to do. Initially, let's not forget the endless talks we had of JDM all this past offseason. I made more JDM content than anyone on the planet alone. Literally, not exaggerating that, I literally did. And I can tell you that JD, back in the offseason, heading into the season, the approach was I expected the OPS points to drop by at least 50 to 100 there, from 900 to closer to 800. And that's exactly where JDM is right now with his offense. The batting average I expected to drop as well, more to that 255 to 270 range, and that's exactly where he is. And the funny thing, I also said that JDM in the 20-25 home run, 70 to 80 RBI plateau makes sense. And again, that is exactly what JDM is lined up to do. Yes, he's been a very streaky hitter for the Mets this year, but when he's been on, and he's been so vital to this Mets team on and off the field with their hitting approach that I think that alone is what's made this such a nice signing for the Mets there. To get some stability for a change at the DH position, even if it hasn't been as stable as maybe you'd hope if, say, you had, a red hot Jorge Soler there, a Kyle Schwarber, you name it. You guys get what I'm trying to say here. Mets are now up 4-1 in the ball game. And yes, as I just mentioned about JDM, a 256 average, a 785 OPS on the year, all right in line with what I was saying. He has 43 runs scored right now, and the RBIs I don't have pulled up right in front of me, but I'm sure he's still in line right now with just under 30 games left this season to find himself probably in the 70-plus RBI to end the season, or close to, hopefully. Definitely want to know how you guys feel about JDM's impact on the Mets this season, though. Have you been positive about it? Have you not been positive about it? Have you guys felt that this is one in line with what you initially expected when the Mets signed him? Has he been very underwhelming for you? However you guys feel about JD Martinez and his impact this season, let it rip in the live show on YouTube. For my live viewers on Twitter X, make sure that like, that follow button, that retweet button. But no, as always, I'll only be interacting with our live viewers here on YouTube. And if you're getting this wherever you get your audio podcast, make sure you head over to those platforms as well. Make sure that you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Help us continue to build the largest Mets community on YouTube, not directly affiliated with the Mets themselves. And thank you all so much in advance for doing exactly that. And leave a 5-star review if you enjoyed the audio format, where I'm not screaming my head off tonight, because it's a nice, calm, comfortable late night victory here in Southside against, yes, the Chicago White Sox. Let me get this pulled up here, and then we're going to continue on breaking down this victorious matchup where the Mets found themselves in a win column by a final score of 5-1. But before I continue to do that, everybody, I do just want to double check here. JDM has helped guys like Vientos, so priceless, Wardy, 1,000%. JDM and Vientos, who initially saw the JDM signing thinking, oh, great, this guy completely just took my job, ended up being far from it as the Mets give Vientos the hotkey corner, the hotkeys at the hot corner, and he thankfully took complete advantage of it and have been smooth sailing ever since. The confidence level that has oozed out of Vientos has been because of guys like JDM in part, for sure, and helping kind of keep them level-headed and professional at the MLB level, as JDM could certainly relate as a guy who was a position player. Actually, I believe was a third baseman coming up too when he started, and then ultimately transitioned into more what we saw there as a standalone DH. Nick Castellanos is a guy as well that people probably don't remember, but Nicky C is a guy that actually started out in the infield as well. I believe center field, not center field, what am I saying? I believe third base too, and then he ultimately transitioned to the corner outfield DH. He's not a good defender. We all know that. Point being, these guys all hit bombs, and we saw Nicky C hit a bomb to lead the way for the Phillies in a victorious matchup with the Braves last night, which I am far from complaining about. All things Mets talk. Hope you are fantastic. I hope you had a great weekend the last time when you guys were at the Mets game last, because I remember you guys mentioning to me. So thank you guys so much for the support as always. I hope you had a blast at that game. Definitely want to know how that was, so let me hear it in the chat, everybody. But let's get back into breaking down this ball game. Bobby G in the chat, how you doing, brother? Hope all's well. Everyone chomping in live on a replay. You guys are the best. The Mets win this one 5-1. And as we get to the bottom of the third here, we would see a quick inning of work there for Tyler McGill after giving up a single to Andrew Benintendi. Somehow Andrew has a 2-hit game, because of course he does against the Mets. The Mets would get a walk there from Francisco Lindor. I mean, what am I kidding? It doesn't matter on the offensive end for the Mets in this one. All you got to know on the context in between from now up until pretty much the end of the ball game, as you saw Tyler McGill settle down nicely, very nicely, to the point that he even retired 9+ straight batters. McGill also retired the side in the 5th inning by striking out the side in doing so. His best inning of work, which is what led Tyler's final line to being the following, everybody, as we mentioned already: 5.1 innings of 5 hit, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 6 strikeout ball, sub-5 ERA on the season for Mr. Big Drip. But solid outing there from Tyler. I'm not going to complain all that much. Before I deep dive a little bit more about his arsenal, I'm going to tell you right now that Tyler McGill, 5.1 inning outing, even against the White Sox, his first start back with the Mets in a minute. That's not an easy thing to do, especially come out here and give us, I would have loved 6 innings, but I'll live with 5.1. I'm going to give Tyler McGill a solid 6.5 out of 10 on this outing. I think he deserves credit for getting the call and making sure that he didn't flunk, because he did not look sharp early in this one. And I know that Tyler is far from a guy guy that's been reliable for the Mets is Mets tenure because of just a lack of consistency, and injuries playing a big part in that more than anything. And maybe just, not having the right comfortability in certain pitches and fine-tuning a lot in a short period of time with the Mets pitching lab that has drastically changed a lot over the past couple of years since Tyler made his Mets debut back in 2022, if not 2020. Was it 2021? I feel like it was 2021 for Tyler. I think that's where he started his breakout because David Pearson was the year prior against the Boston Red Sox in the 2020 short season. I digress. I thought it was a solid outing for Tyler McGill, especially after settling down from there. And as I mentioned, the Mets retired basically like 20 batters straight or close to wrap up the ballgame for the most part. You got some hits from Alvarez, McNeil, solid. But the Mets, they had 10 hits to the White Sox 5 in this one. We had a couple guys get multiple hits, and the guy that stood out the most was Jesse Winker, as we just mentioned. But then on the pitching end, what I would like to share with you is Adam Ottavino came in after Tyler McGill had himself with a one-out jam there in the 6th inning. And as Adam came in, he would thankfully handle that without a problem. Good work there from Adam Ottavino as he would strike out Corey Lee and strike out Dominic Fletcher back-to-back for a scoreless 6th. And the 7th, we saw Reed Garrett come in and have himself a punchy and a 1-2-3 inning. Fastball was up there at 98. It looked great. I really liked what I saw from Reed Garrett. The splitty and the sweeper were as advertised, as expected there. The only thing that I don't love is knowing that he did that against the White Sox when I need him to do that against teams that we need him to do that against. But I digress. Good start there. Winker with his 3rd hit of the day that we saw in the 8th inning. The Mets got a hit there that we also saw from Jeff McNeil. Nothing else happened, however. Phil Maton worked a nice scoreless inning of work, allowed 0 hits, 0 earned runs, had himself a strikeout there that we saw in the 8th inning. And then what we also saw in the 8th inning was, without question, the best catch, the best web gem of the day, none other than Tyrone Taylor getting all of that one that we saw. That was a great catch by Francisco Lindor, as you guys can see in the highlights. Don't get me wrong, it was a beautiful one earlier. Great leaping catch by the most valuable player in the National League. Yeah. We love him. We love Mr. Smile. We love Cisco, baby. But we also love Tyrone Taylor going out of his way to dive into the netting there in the right field area, first baseline for the White Sox. The exact same play that Jeff McNeil did in 2019, which I believe was the last time the Mets were in Chicago against the White Sox, or one of the last matchups at least. And it's actually hilarious how many similarities there are between the Mets in 2019 versus the Mets now, including their continued bullpen woes. That has really been a standout. Not to the same magnitude, but pretty bad with the amount of blown saves the Mets have had this year and how their offense has actually carried them more often than not, believe it or not, after having such a piss poor start to the season, than having the ebbs and flows that you have in a 162. But what we saw as we continued on, Phil Maton had himself the scoreless 8th. Then in the 9th inning, we see Edwin Diaz come in. And Edwin, what did he do? He struck out everyone and the mother. He strikes out Gavin Sheets. He strikes out Corey Lee. And he takes care of Dominic Fletcher with a line out to end the ball game. What we saw with Edwin Diaz, and I want to highlight this, everybody, is important because Edwin yesterday, in his 2nd outing of a 3 straight days where he worked today, yesterday, and 2 days ago, gave up the grand slam to Corbin Carroll that we saw in the 8th inning, and the Mets really, really difficult 8-5 loss, which should have been a serious sweep against the D-backs, was still 2 out of 3. We'll take that. But mind you, that was just a couple days. That wasn't even a couple days. What am I talking about here? Hold on. Let's pump the brakes. So we went from Edwin blowing it in the final game against the Padres. Mets had the off day. Then they won game 1 without Edwin. So Edwin had 2 days of rest after blowing it against the Padres. Then he blows it against the Arizona Diamondbacks. He rebounds beautifully yesterday that we saw where he threw just one slider. 18 pitches, 17 fastballs. He pitched with authority, he pitched with moxie, and he pitched like a guy who's pissed the hell off that he is the reason why the Mets lost the previous game the night before. Enter Edwin for his 3rd straight night. My only criticism, even though he wasn't worked all that much, is that why are you going to do that 3rd straight night when you know he's likely not available now tomorrow, when the Mets didn't need him in the 9th inning today? I think we can all rightfully argue. I understand building the confidence, and I understand having your best guy out there when you need him to, but I think there's also a way to think now and in the future, and where Mendoza has failed at times in his first year as a manager, in my opinion, not with everything. I think Mendoza has done a very fine job as a first-year manager, all things considered. He definitely deserves a lot more credit than, what we saw with not Luis Robert, but what we saw with Louis Rojas, what we saw with Mickey Callaway, what we saw with all these schmucks prior to many not named Buck Showalter in his first year, because Buck in his first year with the Mets was very sharp. We all know that. But to see what Mendoza has been doing has been sharp, a lot of good things. But one of these criticisms I have is the imbalance with evaluating, okay, we're going to focus on tomorrow versus today, or no, we're focusing on today and not tomorrow. It's kind of like, all right, we need to make sure we're making the right decision here. I just hope, again, for the Mets that they're not in a position where they really feel like they need Edwin tomorrow, and then you shouldn't against the White Sox, but you never know because baseball's so fickle and anything can happen. That's all I have to say about the Edwin situation. I understand if you guys aren't bothered by it maybe as much as I am, and maybe I'm being over anal here as we're over analyzing things, if you will. But that's just where I stand when evaluating Carlos Mendoza's decisions. That is the one and only one where I was just a little head scratching today, at the very least. But pitching-wise, that's what we got there. Hitting-wise, we're going to get into in a minute, everybody, as we're going to talk a little bit more on the biggest takeaways from the Mets on the hitting end in this one, on top of the latest updates in Mets land as we do our latest Mets farm report. Rebecca, don't worry, we got you covered, girl. We're going to be breaking down. Rebecca's a great memory. She loves the farm reports, and we got a lot to break down as there have been great things happening. And for Drew Gilbert at the AAA level, there's some awesome things happening for Jet Williams, Mets' top offensive prospect, as he began now at the AA level now, as he is ramping up now as he continued through rehab, and some other key updates of guys even starting in single or AA, making the jump, just being drafted by the Mets. Why is that? We're going to break that all down here shortly, folks, and that will not be a separate video that I post tomorrow. That's going to be all in the post-game coverage here. We're going to make sure that we're not too long-winded tonight, however. But before I get into anything else, everybody, let's let it rip, as we always do, with our amazing sponsor on the channel, one that you all know very well. And if you don't know, make sure you're listening up now, because when it comes to betting and for all your sports betting needs, especially if you were hammering the Metsies in a matchup against the lesser Chicago White Sox tonight, then I certainly hope that you got involved with our awesome friends at Yes, BetUS. As you guys can see, BetUS, as you cover all your sports betting needs, check them out today by clicking that link down below in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And we're going to check our slate, folks, see how we did tonight, because we did pick a two-leg parlay yesterday to see that how we would fare in today's matchups. And our two-leg parlay yesterday that we did, Diamondbacks and Dodgers are tied 5-5, because of course they are. The Diamondbacks already back to rallying the way that they are. I'm glad that they went easy on the Mets, all things considered, outside of that game too. Let's see. Out of the matchups that I had chosen today, we had here, some really tough ones, actually. Let me double check to see if I hit on at least one of the legs, if I won on both, or if I lost on both here. I had the Yankees and the Mets. There we go, baby. I love it. I love it. We did the two-leg parlay today. It was as simple as that. I had the bias because I knew we were playing the White Sox. I knew we had the Yankees facing off against the St. Louis Cardinals. They just dropped Tommy Pham. Yes, Tommy Pham, Mets legend, if you know, you know. He was dropped after, having a solid season as a nice fourth outfielder, a guy that can platoon in areas, a guy that I'm sure if the Mets outfield configuration wasn't deep, they may consider if they felt that he didn't, bury things after how things ended last year and how he parted ways with them. No less, Tommy Pham being dropped was an indication that the Cardinals, after buying at the deadline, are dropping some guys because they know that they don't have it. They know that they're too far out of the wild card race, and they're already starting to wave the white flag. And that began there, that we've seen over the past couple of games. They're fighting, but I don't foresee them getting there barring changes, and we'll see what happens from now to the end of the season. But the Yankees and the Mets won, so I had 20, and that was to win 26. So we over doubled there on our two-leg parlay, which means as we take a look now out of our next two-leg parlay, we're on a heater, baby. When I say heater, I'm exaggerating. We just hit on our last parlay. So congratulations to anyone else that tailed those two-leg picks. You guys are the best. But now as we take a look at the slate of games for this Saturday, and just an FYI, everybody, don't be surprised if I come out with a video out of town and not a live stream. We will see what happens tomorrow, but I will be out of town for the entire day, celebrating my birthday further this weekend. Didn't do so much today because of bad weather, so I will be doing that tomorrow. So if you guys are wondering, where is Wardy if I'm not immediately live for a reaction, that might be because I'm going to post it as an individual video instead, so that way I can continue on with my night. Not that I don't want to be live with you guys, but sadly, the live streams on my phone are very fickle. Like, the quality can be pretty bad, and I don't want to be all choppy for you guys when I can just pre-record it and have exactly what you guys want to hear from me. So don't be surprised if we have a pre-recorded video tomorrow, is all I'm telling you right now. But what I am also telling you is the Mets is for you guys to hammer this following two-leg parlay for the slate of games this Saturday. And it's going to start here actually with the San Diego Padres against the Tampa Bay Rays. The Padres somehow, some way, are at plus 107, and I'm sure that has to do with their pitching matchup. I simply do not care. I'm going Padres every single day of the week at plus 107. The fact that they are ever a underdog right now with the way that they have been playing is absolutely insanity to me. I'm going with the Padres there as a beautiful 107 to win 100 there if you want to do a straight money line bet. But I'm going to pair them in a true leg parlay, and we are going to look at the Mariners and the Angels as our second leg there. M's, who have definitely struggled with their offense this season, are still a team that I think can get the job done against the Halos here. We'll see what happens. These individual bets are basically 10. That's going to win you 10. Or if you want to do them as the double leg, which is what I'm doing, the two leg, it's going to be 10 to win 23. So good luck to everybody that places these bets, and make sure that when you place them, you bet responsibly with our awesome friends at BetUS by clicking that link down below in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. You guys have been awesome with the betting that we've done this season. I look forward to more interactions that we'll be doing following along together all season, and then off-season long for other sports like NFL, NBA, you name it. But to hop back in this one now, folks, let's get into the hitting. Let's see what stood out here. As I mentioned, the Mets out-hit the Chicago White Sox tonight by a final score of what we saw there, 5-1. Dave, great member, 22 months, and a fantastic friend of mine. David, I love you, brother. He says, Johnny Hockey, tragedy, horrible, feel awful. It doesn't even feel real, if I'm being completely frank. And I don't want to think about it because it really choked me up earlier. Between that and the news of our amazing friend Elliot, it's been a really tough day for news. And even though that Johnny doesn't have a personal impact on me, I know how many people he's impacted in his life, and he's impacted me just as a very casual, Johnny Hockey fan, a guy that grew up watching him plenty and idolized him during his long time leading the way for the Calgary Flames, made a decision to want to lead the way for a small market organization in the Columbus Blue Jackets, who I greatly commend, especially as a Rick Nash lover. Rick Nash, former Ranger and Columbus Blue Jacket legend. To see him do that was really commendable. And New Jersey native, a guy that has all these connections with a lot of people and the Ranger community, for my Ranger fans out there, and just New York, New Jersey, Italians, all this kind of connection. And it just really, really sucks, to say the least, for not only him, his brother who passed as well tragically, and now his poor sister who is just about to be married. Their lives are never going to be the same. That's what I thought about most, my initial reaction. And also, as now a new father, I thought about his kids right away too, because I know he has 2 kids who I believe one is I think 6 months or so, or something along those lines. Just tragic news, terrible news. Dave, love you, brother. Thank you for the kind words. But let's break down the hitting in this one. And I apologize for the zoom and gloom in this one. I don't mean to, but it's not my fault that terrible things happened today. And they definitely need to be discussed because they are important, 100%. What we saw there on the offensive end for the Mets, they out-hit 10-5. Francisco Lindor with a 1-for-4 day because, of course, Lindor had an extra base hit in the final inning or two. What, you thought he wouldn't? Lindor had himself the double that we saw there in the 9th inning that was ultimately driven in by Mark Vientos. But I hadn't said that already, so Marky V, great job there to have the RBI up the middle there. Great hitting for Vientos, who had a 2-hit day overall. But Lindor, who's at a 269 average and 829 OPS, continues to lead the way for this Metropolitan team. Brandon Nimmo 1-for-5 with his 230 average, a 747 OPS. Mark Vientos 1-for-3 with the RBI single that we just mentioned, a 276 average and 872 OPS. Did Vientos not have a single in the beginning of this game, or am I going nuts? I could have swore he had 2 hits. Maybe I'm wrong there. Pete Alonso 0-for-4 that we saw there with the walk, a couple strikeouts. Not a great day for Pete. And against the White Sox, it's even that more underwhelming. At 242 average, 794 OPS. Jesse Winker, though, was a different story. Jesse 3-for-4 that we saw there with 2 runs scored, a double, and the RBI. At 268 average and a 789 OPS. Jesse Winker, since the Mets acquired him on August 1st, exactly a month ago, have had a contact hitter of Jesse Winker since then. Not so much on the power because he hasn't been playing every day, so those opportunities to hit home runs have been a little bit more limited. But Jesse Winker has had over 700 OPS, and I believe after today's 3-hit game, should at least be in the 295 category or so, because he was at least 288 entering this game. He should be a little bit higher because there's a small sample size with the Mets versus the previous months that he spent there with the White Sox. The Nationals. JD Martinez with the big 2-run shot, a 2-hit day for him. Oh, JD, maybe he was one that had a hit earlier in the game that I was thinking of. Either way, a run scored, the 2 RBIs thanks to the home run, a 256 average, a 785 OPS. Jeff McNeil 1-for-2 that we saw with a pair of walks, a 241 average and a 700 OPS. Francisco Alvarez 1-for-4 with a 237 average, a 675 OPS, and Harrison Bader 0-for-4 with a 249 average and a 682 OPS. Solid day overall by the boys. Not too many highs, not too many lows. Just about right for a comfortable Game 1 win in Southside against the White Sox. Now, everybody, let's get into our final segment of the night before I get out of here, and that has everything to do with the Mets prospects. But actually, I did want to shed light on one more thing, and I'm going to just be brief with this because I did tell you guys I wanted to deep dive a little bit further on Tyler McGill. And even though we're not doing a complete pitching breakdown with my man Isaac Rothman tonight because it wasn't an outing where it's like you need to go out your way to exactly do that, we are going to look at McGill's arsenal tonight, though, because he threw the kitchen sink out there. He threw 6 different pitches, 4-seam fastball, which was 40% of the time, topped out 97, sat 95, looked solid. Sinker, 21% of the time, topped out 95, sat 94. Slider, 15%, topped out 86, sat 84. Cutter, 11%, topped out 93, sat 90. Curveball, 7%, topped out 80, sat 79. And Splitty, 5%, topped out 87, sat 86. That's what we saw there with Tyler McGill. And even though he threw it once, his curveball had a 100% whiff rate there. He threw it 7 times rather, but he had one swing on it, and the one swing he had on the curveball, it was in fact a whiff. Not a lot of bite with the pitches with Tyler McGill tonight. Still was able to get himself a solid 6 strikeout outing over 5. So all things considered, a pretty sharp outing for him. And retiring the final 9 or so batters that he saw, after that 5th inning, and then he had the little jam there in the 6th. Nothing to scoff at. Perfectly fine outing for Tyler McGill, which is why I'm going to give him a 6.5 on my grade, as I mentioned. And now, as we take a look at the upcoming updates here with the Mets prospects, I do just want to thank you all so much, everyone that's chiming in live on a replay to the latest breakdown of Metsland, as they win this one by a final score of 5-1. And I look forward to answering your calls, questions, and concerns here in the coming days, as we will be doing a live caller segment sooner than later, folks, as I've been mentioning over this past week. And we will be taking guests back on the channel next week as well, which I'm very excited for. So be on the lookout for all of that. But what we saw there for the Mets prospects is interesting. I want to share them. And let's start here with an update, which I think is a really cool one that I missed earlier. Shout out to Daniel Wexler. Daniel does an awesome job. Probably, in my opinion, the Statboy Steven version for the Mets. For those that don't know Statboy Steven, he's a great friend of mine, former podcast co-host when I would cover the New York Rangers after every series, if not every week, when my man Steven, we did a couple years up until this past year, because I sadly just don't have time with my very busy schedule now as a new father to be keeping up with all these teams and being genuine in my breakdowns and actually watching the game still. So that's why we had to cut things there. But what we see Daniel is just like Steve in the sense that he knows everything but every Mets prospect and even every guy that used to be in the organization that you never heard of, because, yeah, he was a 30th round draft pick that was dropped by the Mets in the Rule 5 draft back in like 2012. That's the kind of mind we have here with Daniel Wexler. That's why I appreciate him as much as I do. Little does he know. So shout out to you, Daniel, if you see this. But he tweeted earlier today, source, 8th round pick, right-handed pitcher Ryan Lambert, who throws absolute gas, who did a fantastic interview with my good friends James and Mark, the co-hosts of the Mets Up podcast. Check out their show. They come out with a podcast after every series, but they specifically have a interview that they did not long ago with Ryan himself. And Ryan, who throws absolute gas, triple digits on the gun, is leapfrogging past the St. Lucie Mets and is joining High A Brooklyn to begin his minor league career. Why is that exciting? Ryan Lambert has joined the Mets as one of the biggest flamethrowers that we currently now have in the organization. Should this guy's elbow stay up and stay right, the Mets may have themselves quite a weapon here to utilize in the coming years. And to see him already have the potential to be in High A, to be all the way as soon as AAA next season, is nothing to scoff at. That is very exciting news there for the Mets rookie right-hander who's just getting his pro career started. So shout out to Ryan Lambert, and once more shout out there to my guy and Daniel Wexler for the report. Mike Mayer, who does a great job covering the Mets through Mets Summarize, reported earlier today. Kyle Crick threw 2 scoreless innings and 2 strikeouts tonight as he continues his rehab assignment with the St. Lucie Mets. For those that don't remember Kyle Crick, the Mets signed him this past offseason as a minor league signing where he had a chance to impress in spring training, a non-roster invite. Dealt with injury. Crick was one of those many relievers that the Mets signed under David Stearns. What a very, very interesting slider that gets a lot of swing and miss when it's working right. And that's what the Mets are hoping to have there in Crick as a potential bullpen option. And it honestly wouldn't shock me if the Mets even consider Crick if he does ramp up enough. Now, I don't know if he's going to, because he missed like the entire season. I don't think he might get ramped up quickly enough to face the caliber of what you're going to see at the major league level. And is he even going to be warranted of being given that opportunity over Shintaro Fujinami, over others? probably doubtful, but just something to make note of, as Crick is a guy that heading into the season, the Mets were considering could be impactful for them out of the bullpen. Dave, thank you so much for the $5 haul. I really appreciate that. Everybody, give a big shout out. Let's get some love in the chat. And Dave Coffer. Dave, how are you, my man? So happy to have you in here as well. Dave Kaplitz with the huge $5 haul. A great member, huge friend of mine. Dave has been one of not only the most generous followers and friends that I built over the years here in the community, but truly just one of the most selfless and kind of individuals I've had the pleasure of meeting in person at games. And Dave, I sincerely want to thank you again for the donation, my man. Really does mean a lot. You have no idea how much that means and impacts me and my family. So thank you so much for that. And God bless you and your loved ones. I hope you're doing fantastic right now. We love you, Dave. Well, something you already know very well, but seriously, thank you. You're the best. Thank you guys for the well wishes on the happy birthday stuff too. You guys are amazing. You really are. What's also amazing is Mets top prospects, Drew Gilbert and also Jet Williams. Let's talk about them. What did the boys do? Let's break down exactly that. Because the Syracuse Mets lost their series finale to the Iron Pigs tonight in Lehigh. Funny enough, the official Mets pod, Vito and John, right in my ballpark. I live like right down the block from Coca-Cola Park there in Allentown that you guys see for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. Not far from them at all. And they did a little podcast I saw right outside the stadium. Would have loved to chop it up with them and maybe had something happen there, because who wouldn't want to see Wardy chop it up with the official Mets pod and the official Mets anything realm, right? I think that'd be a pretty cool thing. So we'll try to make that happen at some point, maybe even at the stadium. But we saw the Iron Pigs, after losing the past couple of games, or, having some strong games against the Syracuse Mets, been a good back and forth here. The Mets lose this one, and one thing that stood out was Joander Suarez having a less than ideal outing. Joander, 4 innings, 7 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, 2 earned runs. Joander, if I'm not mistaken, did just move up in the minor leagues not long ago for the Mets this season, because yeah, he absolutely did. This was probably his first or one of his first starts now that we've seen at the AAA level this year. Joander has otherwise been pretty solid because he had right around a 4 ERA with the Rumble Ponies, so that makes sense. My guess is that was his first start there, getting adjusted at the AAA level. Seth Jarvis went 3 shutty. Grant Hartwood gave up 1 run, not a guy that's going to impact the Mets. And on the offensive end, there was literally nothing from Acuna to Gilbert to DJ Stewart to nothing. But the reason why I emphasize Drew Gilbert is not today, but yesterday, we saw Drew Gilbert have himself a very sharp game. He ripped his 4th home run in his past 8 games. Drew Gilbert continues to tear the cover off the ball and continues to now make an argument for the Mets to maybe just consider him as a September call-up. What looks like will be leading the way is Luis Angel Acuna with his speed and defensive versatility in the infield. But if the Mets want more pop, want more moxie, and want a guy that actually might be able to give them an offensive spark should they need it, that is where I think Drew Gilbert would trump the two, no less Luis Angel going to lead the way, barring any changes up until those call-ups. As we take a look at the Rumble Ponies and the key farm updates from there, they lost 3-0 to the Yargoats today, so not a lot to make note of on the offensive end. But Jet Williams, who made his first game back at the AA level that we saw there, as he's continued his rehab assignment. As we know, Jet is working his way back to the Syracuse Mets. He went 1 for 5, 4 strikeouts, so not great, but did rip a single, I believe, in his first at-bat. Wasn't smooth sailing afterwards, but it was great to just see Jet back in here, and he got the start right away at at shortstop over Wyatt Young. Wyatt Young is a guy who will continue to get reps at shortstop, but was moved to second base today, with Jet currently there with the Rumble Ponies until he's moved up back to Syracuse. Other than that, nothing to make note of on the pitching end, nor was there anything overly notable on the offense end, nor was there anything notable on the pitching end outside of Trey McLaughlin with another nice outing. 1 inning of work, now has a 1.89 ERA at the Rumble Pony level this season. He's been really sharp, and I'm excited to see him continue to work up the ranks there in the Mets farm as a solid option for them to consider as a reliever should they go down that route. And what we saw from the Brooklyn Cyclones, my guy Nick Morabito went 1 for 4 today with a run scored, a 285 average, a 710 OPS for their leadoff contact hitter there in Brooklyn. We saw offensively a big day for Mr. Lugo, 3 for 4. Lugo, who hasn't done much that we have seen for the Cyclones this season, had himself a big day today for sure. No denying that one whatsoever, with a couple RBIs as well. Nothing else to really make note of outside of that. And then when we take a look at the final, the last but not least here, the Port St. Lucie Mets, they surprisingly won a ball game. So 43-79, not stopping the Port St. Lucie Mets from securing a victory. Tanner Houck, 1-1-4, Mets top draft pick from a year ago, commanding third base, 207 average, 613 OPS. The 19-year-old just getting his pro career started. Nothing else really notable there on the offensive end, and on the pitching end, it was Kyle Crick that we just mentioned a couple seconds ago. So before I get out of here, everybody, I just want to sincerely thank you guys all so much again for the endless support. A nice calm night in Mets land where the Mets have themselves a comfy victory against the Chicago White Sox, and they look to continue their winning ways and get back-to-back series victories now, which is what they will hopefully do tomorrow there, as we're going to have ourselves an interesting pitching matchup in Game 2. And then all eyes, in my opinion, all eyes are on Game 3. That is without question the biggest game of this series, not only with the potential of it being a rubber match if the White Sox somehow take Game 2, which with the Mets, you never know what can happen, but ultimately it's the pitching matchup, because Game 2 is one thing. We have the pitching matchup of Jose Quintana versus Martin. Martin, who's been very sharp for the White Sox. I actually don't love this matchup with the Mets at all. Quintana facing his former club there with the White Sox. I'm curious to see how he's going to do. I hope that we have a sharp outing from Jose, obviously, but it wouldn't shock me if the Mets bats actually go a little quiet against Martin tomorrow, and you guys will see why. Fair warning in advance. He's been sharp. Isaac, my pitching contributor, told me a lot of good things about him. Nasty changeup too. Beautiful break. Just simply not fair. Almost unhittable. But we have that matchup. But Game 3, Garrett Crochet, Sean Manaea, two absolutely towering and absolutely filthy flame-throwing southpaws right now. Because even though Sean doesn't throw 100 the way that Garrett does, he has gotten so much deceptiveness with his pitches. His velocity has been touching 95, 96 there at times too. And with the great stride, the great length, and just the great overall reach that he has with his follow-through of his swing from that distance to the mound to what we see at home plate, very hard for hitters to pick up that 6'4" frame, or 6'4", 6'5". Sean Manaea, the Samoan southpaw, versus what was leading the way as a Cy Young favorite for a good portion of the season out of the American League, Garrett Crochet. We'll see how that big pitching matchup works out. But until then, everybody, I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching or listening to this, wherever you get your Mets post-game shows here live on YouTube, Twitter, or wherever you get your podcasts there. Make sure to leave a 5-star review, and also make sure to check out our amazing friends at BetUS, who will always have you covered with all your sports betting needs. So you may as well check them out today by clicking that link down below in the description. That way you too get 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 for all my viewers here on YouTube. Clicking that link in the description. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Be on the lookout for either a pre-recorded segment, a live stream, or something different tomorrow. Until then, have a great one, folks. As always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby.